I just remember having this very distinct conversation with my cousin. And I remember sitting there one day with him being like, oh my God, this business is so hard. Like, for us to get something right, we have to find the supplier. The supplier's got to do the right thing. We've then got to ship and make sure there's no problems with shipping. Then we've got to get to Australia. And he just sat patiently and listened to me explain all these things, almost in tears. And then after I said all those things, he just said to me, you know what? Like, I hear you, I understand what you're talking about. But everything that you've just described is a barrier to entry. All those things are effectively a moat around what you're creating. Anyone else who wants to come and compete with you has to also navigate all those things to be able to compete with you. So those hard things protect what it is that you're building. So I spend all day, every day speaking to business owners. Everyone's going through the same thing, facing the same challenges or variations thereof of what we're going through. It's universal. Just breathing and remembering that this is something that we actually do love is so important, because you can lose track of that. And if you lose track of that for too long, it can be catastrophic.
Welcome to Behind the Design, a podcast where we unfold the details behind the designs we know and love and explore how each project comes to life. I am Camilla Ingall, owner of Unfolded, an interior design and styling studio. In this podcast series, we dive into the details with our industry experts, covering topics such as the creative process, latest design trends, and how we, as an industry, work together to meet the brief and overcome challenges. Let the conversation begin. Welcome back to Behind the Design, the podcast where we pull back the curtain on the people, the processes, and the personal realities behind creative and construction-led businesses. I'm your host, Camilla Ingall, interior designer and founder of Unfolded, and today I'm joined by James McCarthy, co-founder of GatherCo. GatherCo has carved out a distinct position in the supplier space, not simply through product, but through relationships, adaptability, and a grounded understanding of what long-term collaboration actually looks like. While the business originally focused on exterior materials and outdoor living, it has evolved organically through working closely with designers, architects, and builders across a wide range of projects. Something I've come to realize through my own journey is that confidence in business rarely arrives all at once. It tends to build through moments where you look back and think, how did I get here? Maybe I've over-accommodated. Maybe I've stayed in a project too long. Maybe I've been chasing validation instead of alignment. Those experiences can feel uncomfortable at the time, but they often become the turning points that shape how we lead moving forward. James, welcome to Behind the Design.
Thanks for having me.
So James, as co-founder of GatherCo, tell me a little bit about what GatherCo is.
GatherCo is a trade-only supplier. We supply stone, obviously. And I guess our biggest point of difference is the fact that we're digital driven. So we don't operate a physical bricks and mortar showroom. We don't trade with the public. What we've really invested in is our relationships. That's on both sides. Our clients, which are the architects, designers, people like yourself, but also the people who are supporting our business through what they supply. That time on the ground with artisans around the world is really how we see ourselves as a differentiator in the marketplace. We just want to invest in relationships because we see everything as long-term. I'm not trading with somebody who's going to come in once and do a renovation and then we possibly won't see them for another 7, 10, 20 years. The majority of people that I'm dealing with are repeat customers. And that goes, again, on both sides, supply and design.
So because you do work primarily with architects and designers, as opposed to end clients or end users, how has that influenced the way that you operate and communicate with what you do?
We've tried everything, to be honest. And I think that's just a manifestation as a business evolves. So when we were early on, we were very broad and we did dabble in going directly to the public.
It's common to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, start big and then start
yeah,
to niche.
you just
niche
start
down.
to narrow it for sure.
Yeah.
And I think for us is, we started to realize fairly early on that we just couldn't do everything well. And we just felt like the more we concentrated on a core group or a core customer, being industry, the better we went. I don't want to inject myself in between you and client, or designer and client, or trade and client, because I just think that's a unique partnership in its own, and it's already complex.
And it's already created before we come to you.
Correct. And like there is occasion where we get drawn into the middle for a host of reasons, largely because you know, the client has insisted on dealing directly with us. And, the overwhelming experience that we have, it just complicates and slows things down, which makes it really hard for everybody to be efficient and also, at the end of the day, profitable. So,
Yeah, it sort of interrupts your
yeah,
process almost.
it does. Yeah. It works for lots of businesses. And, you start to get comfortable with, we're not going to be right for everybody, which is fine. And that's not the mindset that we've always had. Like before, we were like, you want us to do star jumps? We'll do star jumps. Like whatever.
How many?
Yeah, literally. But I just think, yeah, for us, just knowing our lane and the more we stick to it, and then also being comfortable being like, we're not the best fit for you. But the good news is there are a lot of fantastic suppliers out there that are going to be exactly what you like. Here's a list.
And it sounds like that plays a big role in how you differentiate in the market.
For sure.
Yeah. You talk about relationships being a long-term game. What does genuinely strong relationships look like for you, from your perspective, but as the projects go?
I think those strong relationships are built on a few things, but at the core is honesty. I just feel like when we're really upfront from the beginning around managing expectations, that's something that just allows everything to unfold smoothly, and that also allows people to go away and do what they're best at and take confidence in the fact in the information that I'm sharing with them is accurate and honest. Because at the end of the day, whenever we're specified, that's somebody hedging their reputation on our ability to deliver. And that's something obviously we take very seriously, particularly because, like I said before, we want to be trading with people for 5, 10, 15, 20 years into the future. That's what this is all about for us.
Yeah, it's a long-term relationship. And that's, repeat work and referral. And there's so much that comes from that.
Yeah.
Early on in the business, you've described yourself as being thirsty, quote unquote, saying yes to almost
So
everything.
I didn't know you were quoting that. That was, but it's true.
I find it very interesting. It's a good way to put it because people can relate to that. So what was driving that mindset at the time?
I think that's a result of just fighting for dear life. Like
Survival mode.
it's everyone knows business is hard. Like business is really, really hard. And I think that at the beginning, because you are like literally fighting to keep the lights on, you'll do anything. And I think as you start to become more established, the necessity around that mindset is less. Sometimes there is that tendency to fall into that trap as well. But the better we've got at saying, this is what we are, this is what we do, but more importantly, this is what we are not, and this is what we don't do, the better things go. It's like it's been so obvious, and a lesson that we've had to be reminded of a few times, because there's certainly, even now, sometimes I think, how do we get here? Because we've established rules. I've established the rules, and my staff or our staff are better at following those rules often than I am. So you're the person that needs to be reminded, and I get pulled up from time to time, being like, didn't we just say we're not going to do that? And I was like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. And I think, that just, again, sticking to your lane has been so important to us, for sure.
I think it's really common as business owners / founders / visionaries that you can get caught up in the bigger picture, what's next and what not, and having a team who can remind you, not even just stay in your lane, but also let's just ground in what we've just set up as a system or a process that we spoke about just last month. And you're thinking, that's right. Sorry, guys. Let's get back to that. But it actually helps because sometimes you can get too bigger picture and too 5 years ahead that you forget how your daily systems and processes need to be on it as well.
Well, I think it's also a matter of reiterating amongst your team that you're not above the laws that we all set. Like, yes, often it's myself and my two partners, Dan and Mike, that are setting those baseline rules, but we need to live by them as well. And it obviously doesn't set a great example if we're stepping outside those boundaries all the time. At the end of the day, we established that protocol for a reason. And when everyone buys into that protocol, because we're driving that from the top, ultimately that makes us more efficient, a better supplier. And again, we're in business to make money, more profitable.
You know what? Like just hearing you say this, it's quite humbling because you're sort of saying, oh, yes, okay, if you were to look at it from a hierarchical perspective, you are at the top because you own and founded it with your co founders. But at the same time, your team are keeping you accountable. And I think there's a lot about that that shows that team player is also a long term game. It's not just I'm the owner. Well, I just switch the rules and everyone follows because I decided that.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I think like we come from an added benefit and background in the sense that there's three of us. So we've always been a team. And I'm wise enough now after we turned 10 this year to understand that I can't do this on my own. There's no, like, there's moments where I'm like, oh, I wish I was the mega boss and this is, everyone just did what I said. But when I think about that logically, if I was solely in charge, like if I was solely in charge of GatherCo, we would not be sitting here today. 100%. There's no chance. But I have two partners. They're my team from the beginning. And the best thing about what we're growing is that team is getting bigger and bigger. And there's more people who are getting invested in that mission. And that evolution is amazing. Like, do you know how many times I walk through our warehouse now, which not too long ago, like literally 3 or 4 years ago, was Dan, myself, and Michael sitting in a little box office in this big warehouse in the middle of Windsor. Smells like BO. I know that we've evolved because I walk into our office now and it smells like potpourri. There's plants in there, feminine energy. Like we've got it's like, it's just a different thing. And yeah, like just the other day, Dan pulled me aside. There's containers getting unloaded, trucks coming and going, staff running around, samples running. Dan's like, who's paying for all this? I'm like, man, I think we are. Like, I think we are. But you have those moments where you're like, what? Like, who is paying for all these people? Like, where'd they come from? So it's, there's even now, there's certainly pins out. Because like I said, it just wasn't that long ago that it was not in anything like that at all.
And 10 years flies. Like it sounds like it's a decade. But you look back sometimes, like I'm 7 years in November, and I'm like, 7?
Yeah.
Just I need to recap the first 4. The last 3 feel like recent. Before that, I'm like, what was happening?
It's the biggest cliche in the world, but I think as well, like an evolution as well for me has been that when we first started the business and that initial period, you're so fixated on a destination. You're always like, we're doing this because we want to be here. We're doing this because we want to have this or make this. But 10 years in, when I look back, I'm starting to understand it's the journey that is more important than the destination. Like all those experiences leading up to sitting even today here with you, like it has made what we're building so worthwhile. And you just have to remind yourself at times, because you're just like, oh my God, this is so hard. What am I doing? But it's only when you just zoom out a little bit and just like, man, I'm having the time of my life. Like I am having the time of my life. I just need to allow myself to remember that every now and again, or be reminded. Like, and my wife's really good for that. She's just like, just remember you love this. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. I do. Yeah. Not this second, but yeah, I do love it.
Yeah, or not this week.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
come Monday, a new opportunity comes in, and you
Yeah,
get excited again.
100%. Yeah, like there's still moments where I, literally need to be cradled to sleep. You wouldn't be kidding anyone who's in business if you said otherwise. Like everyone that I speak to, like I spend all day, every day speaking to business owners, being a trade supplier. Everyone's going through the same thing. Like everyone is battling and facing the same challenges or variations thereof of what we're going through. It's universal. I think just breathing and remembering that this is something that we actually do love is so important, because you can lose track of that. And if you lose track of that for too long, it can be catastrophic.
Yeah.
Which is,
Big negative impact.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I think this is exactly why I love these conversations, because it's exactly what you're saying. We see all the pretty photos and all the finished products, but everyone is going through similar challenges. So like, let's unpack it. Let's talk about it and help each other. Support each other.
100%. And that's like I say, because again, I'm in a unique position where I am speaking to business owners. Like everyone is so supportive. Like that's what we found. I'm still baffled when I think back to some of the bigger designers and architects and landscape designers that specified us in the early days. Because when I look back on what our offering, our value proposition was, like we weren't offering unique products. We weren't the cheapest. We weren't this, we weren't that. And they still saw fit to give us a go, which ultimately allowed us to keep the lights on for those first few years. So like, obviously the gratitude from our end that comes from that, because at the time you're like, yeah, I'm doing a great job, but like, I know it wasn't. Nothing that we've done to begin with has been great. Nothing, like literally nothing. It's only through reps that we started to get better at certain things and carve out our niche. But yeah, that support, like our experience, that support, for whatever reason, maybe they felt sorry for us. I don't like two guys knocking on their door being like, please specify us. It's just something that's really dear to me for sure, that support.
So looking back then, nothing comes to mind where you're like, I think it was, the communication, or you did have that one story where you did bend over backwards physically.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good story. But to answer your first question, like, if I think about it, and this is me making assumptions because I've never actually sat down and had this conversation with those people who are specified. They
Got
know
the
who they are.
feedback.
Yeah, to get why they did it. But I think if I put myself in their shoes 10 years in, and I have like a couple of youngish guys, we're 25 or 26 when we started, approach us to get an appointment so we can get specified, why they saw fit to specify us. I think if it was me, I think it was because they could see people that were serious about having a go. Like, we weren't just posturing. Like, we'd gone out, we'd been there around the world, we'd prepared an opening collection, mediocre at best. But I think beyond all that, we were having a crack and we were willing to front up and we were making promises that we felt like we could deliver on. And I think that was enough for them to be like, you know what, I can support and get around that. And when I, again, put myself in their shoes, I think that would be something that I would be willing to do as well. I think, yeah. But
And they're
again,
investing in you, essentially.
they are,
your
yeah.
product, how you're going to show
Yeah.
up.
And interestingly, like, some of these businesses are hands down our biggest specifiers today. They've been through the journey literally from start, and like the projects that we're working on at the moment are just like, wow, amazing. But yeah, the story, yeah. We have this collection of antique terracotta, the Molina antique terracotta. We still are super passionate about this collection. It was one of the first things that we launched with. We basically found these two brothers in Serbia who go out and collect these old roof tiles and repurpose them. They're pulling down all these beautiful roofs and replacing them with tin because they leak and whatever. So we collect them. The guys process them into different shapes that we had agreed on, make them ready. We send them to Australia and then we distribute them as flooring tiles. They're like stunning. But the thing is, there's a variation of color across them. Most of them like 100, 200 years old. So they're antiques. So we had an architect, love her to death now. Like, she's, again, still specifying us. But she said to us, hey guys, I love the Molina terracotta, but of the 9 tones across the collection, I really only like 4 of them. So is there any chance that you might be able to just let me have the 4 colors that I like? So me today sitting there, the answer to that question is absolutely no. Back then we're like, yeah, let's do it. So the 3 of us, we spend literally all Friday laying out every single one of these tiles that we've got in our collection, which is 300 or 400 square meters, laid it all out in these long rows. I then turned up the next day and I'm on my hands and knees. And what she was doing, she would stand over me and would walk along these rows, me on my hands and knees, her above me, and she'd be like, yep, that one, no, not that one, flip that one out. And here I am flipping it. And I just remember being on my hands and knees, flipping on a sad day and just thinking to myself, is this my life? Like,
How did I get here?
is this what I've signed up for? The other side of that is that project went ahead. It's amazing.
Silver linings.
Yeah. We were able to promote that project, which has since rolled on to, like, we just finished filming at a project down in Barrel, which is incredible. And they've, like, having conversations with the architect on that one. She said to me, she goes, look, I would have not specified for this project had I have not seen this other one that we'd done earlier. So, like, it's funny how it goes full circle. But yeah, like that epiphany moment when I'm on my hands and knees just thinking, wow, I might have made a mistake here. This might be a mistake. But we got through it.
And so I guess in all of that, what did that experience teach you about the boundaries and I guess sustainability in doing all of this for clients? And
I think there's a few lessons in that. Like, again, we're dealing with businesses that are young as well. And I think Some of the businesses that we deal with that are young possibly don't understand that you're not going to generate amazing value at the beginning, and you might have to be willing to do things that you wouldn't otherwise in order to gain momentum, because momentum is everything. And we've learned that lesson huge. So at the beginning, there are things that you can do which you simply cannot do at scale. So as we've gotten bigger, the realities of us shutting down our warehouse to lay out 300 or 400 square meters so that we can, there's no way. There is, because we would disappoint so many other customers because we couldn't dispatch. It would just disrupt everything. And I just think as you scale, and that kind of folds back to the policy discussion we had before, like you need to set guardrails and boundaries and
Limits.
limits to the way that you operate, because otherwise you're always going to be fixed at a certain level, because you'll be restricted from the inside if you don't have those boundaries.
How did learning to say no start to reshape both the culture and direction of GatherCo?
Establishing policy, like procedures and policy, like, you know, the three of us boys were having a discussion the other week about our sick leave policy. We use a consultancy firm to help manage with all our HR stuff, and just lots of things that we've never had to consider at all. How you approach staff for, you know, improvement, and discuss things and what the settings to be, and you know, documentation. It's just like, how do we get here? But again, all that stuff is necessary if you want to get to a bigger size, and that's what we want to do. Yeah, what's what we want to do.
Yeah, as you grow and scale, you do need to lean on, contractors or consultants, agencies and things like that, because we can't do everything. You weren't born across all of those roles. You started a business that you now need support in several areas to keep going and keep growing and scaling.
Well, and I think like the biggest advantage to bigger wheels, you can bring in those external expertise, and that revolves around full-time in-house staff, which bring in expertise that you don't necessarily have. Like we can learn things, and we've learned that. Like we've done that. We've taken the time to learn things. Being able to trade that time for expertise allows us to move faster. So that's why we use consultants, because they come in with a different set of skills that we might be able to learn, but it's going to take us a really long time. The upfront cost might seem significant, but when we extrapolate that out over the alternative, it's a no-brainer. And it's getting comfortable with that, because as a founder, you're always thinking, no, I've got to do everything because I'm going to save money. But the question is, are you actually saving anything by doing some of these things yourselves? And often when you run the numbers, you're not. Absolutely not.
No, you're not saving time, that's
No.
for sure.
No, and your time is your biggest asset.
Yeah.
Because it's just, that's so finite. Particularly when you introduce external things like family, and, I'm managing two young children. They're managing me more than I'm managing them, to be honest. Thank God for my wife. But yeah, like there's more things that are pulling you around. So that time becomes so valuable.
This episode of Behind the Design is brought to you by my interior design studio, Unfolded. We create spaces that are functional, thoughtful, and deeply connected to the way people live, working closely with clients, architects, and builders to bring considered environments to life. You can explore more of our work at unfolded.com.au. On complex design and construction projects, decisions for people like yourselves as a supplier in the industry can become quite granular and time intensive. So how do you balance delivering on, an exceptional outcome and product while still protecting that commercial viability?
That's a really interesting question. And I think that there's a few angles that we have to come at with that. Obviously, as projects scale, there's often more stakeholders. So that decision-making process is slowed down. From our standpoint as a supplier, like we see value in trying to keep momentum. And we find that there are details that can really slow down how that unfolds. Necessary, of course, but there is a balance between making sure we get those finer points right, but also we've got a construction schedule to keep, or there is a production timeline that we're trying to maintain. And if we get bogged down in this, we're not gonna hit that. And the downstream effect of that is it costs the client money, which is damaging for everybody, because everyone gets tarnished when the end consumer is not happy with the outcome. So yeah, from our standpoint, that really has driven our online approach. So for a long time, all we wanted to do was build a beautiful showroom. That's like everything that we did was taking us to a point where we could build something like exactly like this. Like I walk in here, I'm just like, wow, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
I
Yeah.
want this so much.
And it
But
represents your brand.
it's a physical thing that people can interact with. It's
And we're such a visual industry,
Yeah.
like visually driven, you know.
exactly yeah. The reason we did it is because we just didn't have enough money. Like we ran every scenario, including like begging on George Street to be able to raise the finance that we needed to be able to do it, and just it never made sense based on all the other things that we needed to be able to finance to get the business to a place where it could support growth in sales. So we didn't do it. We haven't done it. And the reason we haven't done it is because we've gotten past proof of concept. So for a long time, we're like, can you sell what we're selling exclusively online and be viable? And that was a big question mark. But as we've gotten to a certain level, like it was kind of our accountant that pulled us aside and just been like, guys, I know that this is something that you've got your heart set on, but look, you can sell what you're selling online. You're doing it. Like, why don't you lean into this? And just having that external voice being like, it's okay that you're not able to obtain this thing, or you haven't been able to obtain this thing. You are starting to get to a posture where you can, but maybe that's not the best direction anymore because we've evolved. And again, we've beaten through this barrier that we'd set in our own minds that, you just can't sell what we're selling well exclusively online.
Without a showroom.
Yeah. A big part of the reason why we started the business is we interacted with some of the other players in our market or our space, their showrooms, and we were inspired. Like that's why we started. Like I still vividly remember walking into Richard Olmsworth's showroom, Garden Life, his initial one over at Surrey Hills, and just having like a physical reaction to being in that space because it was so beautiful. Like his store, I've got his book is sitting on my coffee table now. Like I just love everything that brand represented and how he'd pulled it together, and then how he pushes that out into a showroom. Like having met Richard a few times, like he's 100% one of my man crushes. 100%. My wife knows it as well. Like it's
She okay with it?
yeah. I don't know if he is though. Sorry, Richard, if you're watching this. But it's true. It's so yeah, like that was for me was a big thing. Like I want to be able to do this for other people. Like I want other people to have the experience when they interact with our brand. And I think as we've evolved, we've just started to get more and more comfortable. We're like, no, you know what? Like we're going to forge our own path. We're not going to do the showroom thing. We're still going to try and articulate the brand values any which way we can. But this is the direction we're going to take, and we're comfortable with that now. And that's been a massive evolution.
Yeah. And like letting go.
Yeah, it is.
It's cool. And so if we dive more into not having a showroom and having made that decision confidently, how does that work with architects and designers requesting samples from you?
Absolutely. There is a percentage of the market that needs a physical showroom to make decisions. That's part of their process. That's how they've always worked. That's how they're always going to work. And we're comfortable with that. Absolutely. There's no right or wrong here. What we represent is an option for people who work differently to that. And that might be a case-by-case basis, or that might be the exclusive way that you work. Because sometimes you'll be dealing with a client who's like, no, I want to go to a showroom with you, and I want to discuss things in situ so that we can make a decision together. Like, we're not going to be the right fit for that, obviously. But what we do find is that one of the advantages we feel like we offer is efficiency, and we try and cut out distractions, because that folds back to what we were talking about earlier around efficiency allowing us to be profitable. And that's from the specifier side. If you're getting held down on trying to make a selection on a single piece for days and weeks, you can't keep that project moving along. And when you start to work out your time on those small decisions over the course of a long project, that's a really hard way to make money. So what we find is that
and to track.
it is
Like to try and track revision.
How do you do
Where are
that?
we at? Why are we here? Why have they changed their mind on that? And to stay across it all, it's like
Exactly.
too much.
And even if you do track it, because it is big, there's still this shock factor when the client gets that invoice. Be like, whoa, wait, you were billing me for that time? Like, yeah. It's like, like we need to set limits here so that like it works. So with our samples flow, we limit the number of samples, because at the beginning we just said every sample, if you want to have 30 samples, we'll send you 30 samples. Doesn't work.
Again, that's that broad.
It doesn't
and then
work.
coming back
Yeah,
to what works now.
we limit the samples to a number, and most of the time, like most of the specifiers that we're dealing with, only want to have a few options that they present, as opposed to, say, going to a showroom and being presented with everything. Like, oh, what about this? Oh, what about that? Oh, we think about that. It's like you can't move forward. So we have a limited amount of samples. We do what we can to make sure that those samples are presented in the best possible light and are accurate. Obviously, that's important. It's really difficult to make a decision off a 200.
Well, project images helps too.
Project images
Has
are
it
really
been
helpful.
specified before?
For sure. And we've also lent largely into video. We just find like that movement is really helpful because we can play with light and give people an objective opinion of what happens when you introduce different light sources to a particular surface, which is important, obviously. So, from our standpoint, because we don't have that focal point of a physical showroom, we're furiously brainstorming and working in the background to be like, how can we improve this sampler's experience? What are we going to do to make this as good as it possibly can?
Yeah. And you know what? Hearing that, it sounds like that process for you is so thorough. So that also breeds confidence. Because I know that if I wasn't able to walk into a showroom, but I had this, and this from you, I had the confidence that you specified it in a similar environment prior, and you were able to show me those images. But what more do I really need? I don't need the showroom experience.
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, I don't think it's not typically the specifier that needs that showroom experience. It's the consumer.
Yeah.
So that's the gap. And also, like, I respect that we're possibly making your job more difficult in a sense because you're having to sell the product as opposed to being able to,
So I'm then needing to instill confidence in the client. Yeah.
So yeah, that's something that we understand is a barrier for some people, and I respect that. But there is, a serious amount of businesses that we interact with who don't see that as a negative, but rather a positive because they can just keep things moving along.
How do you work with designers and architects when it comes to, approaching that sort of perfection and keeping that on track with the timeline of the project? Because the project life cycle can be, as we know, could be 6 months, 8 months, up to 3 years. Do you need to then store products if they're not available yet? How do you manage all of that end of it?
We're a product. Unlike all the businesses that we interact with that are service-based businesses, we're a product-based business. So that inventory management is a huge part of what we do. But I also think it flows back to our values. Like, we're in natural stone, which, in my opinion, by definition, is imperfect. So when you start from that place, because there's conversations that we have at the beginning where people are like, oh, I want this, and it needs to be this and this. And the more I listen to what's being described to me, the less I am to put forward what we have to offer, because what they're describing isn't natural stone. It's porcelain or something that's manufactured, like man-made. So when you understand fundamentally what your product is, you establish that from the very beginning. You set the correct expectations. Everything beyond that flows a lot better. And that comes right down to storage and all those kind of things that come with delivering a physical product. Yes, we have ongoing challenges with the missiles coming and that whole situation. I'm not even going to go there. So we're playing, or having to deal with those things from time to time. But it's not unique to our business. Everyone else is in the same boat. So it's not like anyone has this crazy advantage or disadvantage from what's going on. It's just a matter of being adaptable and being able to pivot on those kinds of situations. And again, we're still small when you compare us against or with the big players. So one of our biggest advantages is that we can pivot, and we should be able to pivot because we're a lot smaller machine to move around. For a long time, I would think about our problems, like the things that we're up against. And I just remember having this very distinct conversation with my cousin, who's MBA. He's a lot smarter than I am. And I remember sitting there one day with him being like, oh my God, this business is so hard. Like, for us to get something right, we have to find the supplier. The supplier's got to do the right thing. We've then got to ship, make sure there's no problems with shipping. Then we've got to get to Australia. Then we've got to get to Port Botany. We've got to warehouse it, and we've got to do this, we've got to do that, we've got to do that. he just sat patiently and listened to me explain all these things, almost in tears, like exacerbated about how hard it was to execute a good sale. And then after I said all those things, he just said to me, you know what, like, I hear you, I understand what you're talking about, but everything that you've just described is a barrier to entry. I was like, so what do you mean by that? So he goes, all those things are effectively a moat around what you're creating. So anyone else who wants to come and compete with you has to also navigate all those things to be able to compete with you. So those hard things protect what it is that you're building. So don't look at it as these really difficult things. Yes, they're challenges, but it's well within your ability to master them or get to a good place in all those facets, execute a positive sale, and know that what you're building has a level of protection around it. And I was just like, when he said that to me, I was just like, wow, that's super helpful. But it's just been like that mindset of, oh, we can't compete against the big boys because they're so much bigger than us. But we're small, we're nimble, we can move quickly, we can make decisions quickly, whereas it's likely going to be a lot more of a pivot for them to move their entire organization when it's spread across the whole country and all the, like, we don't have those problems. And you can basically apply that same logic to every challenge that you're against. It's just a mindset thing, and it's so powerful. It's so powerful. It's zooming out and just being like, is this really a disadvantage, or is this one of my competitive advantages? And I just, yeah, that's been huge for me personally, but also us as a brand on how we look at things. In its essence, it should be really easy for someone to just bring in a container and start selling stone tomorrow, or buy a microphone and start doing a podcast tomorrow. When things are really tricky and you're like feeling overwhelmed, just coming back to that place and understanding that maybe that disadvantage is, by essence, your competitive advantage. I've found it super powerful.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
I love that. Do you find that you're in a place now, 10 years in with GatherCo, that you're recognizing when projects or specifiers are not a good fit? And how do you navigate that while still maintaining professional relationships?
Still not easy. Still not easy. Definitely something that we face from time to time, for sure. I think we've gotten over the years better at saying no, or understanding when we've reached that boundary, and then basically saying we can't move forward from here. We have a couple of options, laying those options on the table, and then committing to whatever everyone's decided on. But it's hard. Like, I don't like confrontation. That's just my nature. My
Does
wife,
anyone?
wow, my wife.
Actually,
yeah,
yes, you
like
have
shit.
mentioned.
Exactly. So like, it also plays into the different personalities between myself and my two founders. Like, I don't like to speak on behalf of them too much, but we are so different. We are so different, and we've just found that in scenarios that I might be able to face or excel in, for example, sitting here today, like, I can do this. It's uncomfortable, it's scary, but I can do this. My partners, like, no, like, it's not them. It's
And they're
not
not
them at all.
interested, you were saying.
They're not interested. They're not
Mm.
interested in doing these kind of things. And, I could sit here and be like, well, everything should be even. But the reality is, the power of our partnership is that we are so different. Like, it's hard. Like, mate, we have argument. Like, I had an argument with Michael last week about something. Like, we argue all the time. But because we have been in this boat together, and we are literally in this boat together, like, if it fails, it's catastrophic. Not just for me, but also for Michael and for Daniel. What you start to really understand is, let's put people in seats that they excel and let them go, and trust that your partners can do that and will do that. And I just think when it comes back to that conversation around, confrontations and whatnot, there are situations that, say, Michael's better placed to handle because he comes from an Excel sheet, like, matter of fact background. And if it's something very factual and this is what is logical, then we put him in, like, you handle this. If it's something a little bit more, say, emotional or like creative, but also like personal, like this kind of discussion, then maybe like I'm better placed to have that kind of a conversation with somebody. It's just understanding those strengths and then putting the people in the right seats. And then that extends across the whole organization. Because, like, as we've hired, we've onboarded really great people, really great people. And you see those people doing amazing things in the roles that you've hired them for. And the temptation for me as a founder is to be like, oh, he's really good at that, or she's really good at that. I should also get to do this as well. And then just remembering that just because they're really great at something, don't dilute that. Let them be really good at that thing and do that thing. Because as a founder, you always want to diversify. Oh, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this. So much better off putting people in the right seat, let them excel, do that thing, and then bring the next person in when you get to the next stage. And it's just that output over a long period is just exponentially greater, has been our experience.
And I think it circles back to what we said earlier about it. You sound like as a team, as three founders of GatherCo, quite humble, just in the way of going, okay, that's my lane. All right, no worries, guys. In this instance, I've got that. So for Michael and Dan to then say, all right, cool, it's a bit more of a personal thing. We've got to have this awkward chat with this client, might be a bit uncomfortable. James, how are you for that one? I think that says a lot about how you operate as a team, and that infiltrates into client relationships. Absolutely.
For sure. And like, I have to be very conscious of the way that I interact with clients in front of our sales team or in front of our organization as a whole. When it was Dan, myself, and Michael, we could have some kind of issue, like we might have a disagreement with a client on whatever issue. I could get off the phone and then I could vent that to the guys and just, oh my God, this is so annoying, like la 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 la. Whether they're right or I'm right, whatever, I could vent. And it's just, effectively three mates in a room. If I do that same thing now in front of our team, then I start to promote a culture where it's okay to bitch about clients, which, right or wrong, is not healthy.
No, not professional.
It's not professional. It's not professional. And it's not healthy as an organization who prides themselves on relationships. And it's not until you're in that moment that you're like, I have to be really diligent about the way that I conduct myself with the team. And it's an evolution because it doesn't come naturally. Like, you just think the things that you can do as a trio doesn't work when, we're at 13 or 14 stuff. It's not sustainable, it's not scalable, and it's not healthy for the business as a whole.
And I think as owners, we do need to pause sometimes before we speak, before we act, because most of the time it's reaction.
Guilty.
Anyone else? Or putting our hands up. But that's just having self-awareness as well and being super conscious of like, I'm about to get frustrated here, or I'm about to respond to this in a way that I might regret. Can I pause for a moment? And I've learned that almost the hard way, if we're going to be honest about learning things the hard way and what we know now. I used to respond to emails really, really quickly because I would get anxious and reactive, or protective even. And now I go, draft it on Tuesday afternoon, send it on a Wednesday morning, reread it Wednesday morning. The amount of times you change 90% of it because you're calm, you've slept on it. You actually speak from a place of not just professionalism, but your center, rather than what annoyed you because you were already tired by the time you got the email on Tuesday afternoon and a few other things that happened to cause you a bit of grief that day. Don't carry that into responding to somebody.
Yeah. That pause is just it's such a healthy thing. And a lesson that every time I deviate from, I think to myself, why? Like, I know this. I know not to react straight.
I've done this before. Why did
so
I
many
not do it
times.
then?
Like, you get better and better at it because you're more conscious. You're like,
Yeah, it's practice, right?
yeah, and for me, like, a really healthy thing has been patience around my two kids. Just really, like, Kristen and I are really conscious about not being reactive, like doing whatever we can.
As role models.
Yeah, because, a 2-year-old Penelope, like, she mirrors everything. Like, we can't have conversations in confidence because she repeats everything to the people who we're having conversations about. So
Nothing's in hiding anymore.
no, that's right. It sounds so petty, but one of the big barriers that Dan, Mike, and I struggled with to get past was hiring a cleaner, because when we started the business, we'd always clean the bathrooms. That's on us. So we got male and female bathrooms now. And we've only hired a cleaner the end of last year because we were like, it doesn't make sense. Like, because we always did it because we thought it's really good to show that we're humble. Like, it's really good to show that we're not above cleaning bathrooms and demonstrate that in front of our staff. Like, no, not too good. We can do this. We can do that. And for us, it was just surprising how long we dragged our feet on it and just had to get to a place where we're like, it makes no sense for either one of us to be spending an hour cleaning bathroom when you factor in the cost of that time versus doing the million other things that we should be doing in this business.
It's taking you away from where you
100%.
should be.
100%.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting conversation because there's like this full barrier that we had to get. Yeah, we can hire a cleaner. It's okay. Like, it doesn't mean we're lazy. It doesn't mean that we're too good for it. It just means that, we're prioritizing our other activities in the business. I thought that was interesting.
And so you've spoken openly about viewing business as competitive, the realities, obviously noticing what other suppliers are even doing. How does that competitive awareness shape the way that you operate day to day now?
I have read plenty about ego and the pitfalls of ego. And yeah, I certainly agree with large amounts of it. And absolutely, when I look back on my life, there's negativity that has come from unbridled ego. But also, I feel like that little bit of ego, but what I would call competitiveness, is one of the biggest driving factors for me in the business. I can only speak for myself, like
Your own
down
experience.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I know that when we first started, like the first venture that Dan, Mike, and I went into was a failure. Like, there's no other way to describe it. We bought a dilapidated terrace house in Woolloomooloo. We had grand ideas of being these mega developers, and we renovated this thing and turned it into something beautiful. Took it to auction and lost $30,000 on it. I remember that experience because we had broadcasted it amongst all our friends and family. Hey, these guys are doing this incredible thing. And like, the final product was amazing. But when we had to then tell people that we made a loss, it was like, I look back to that and it was such a humbling, embarrassing, tough thing to go through at the time. So that experience has really driven, I think, the three of us, but definitely me, to make sure that what we do now is not that, because I never want to feel like that again. It was horrible. So I think that, call that ego or call that competitive edge. Absolutely, I want to win. Like, that's just a part of my intrinsic personality.
DNA.
I want to win. Like, and that flowed through from when I was playing football to business. And like, I really do see business largely as a competition and a matter of getting reps in. Like, we have never been good at anything at the beginning. Same as sports. I've never been great at anything at the beginning, but I've learned the more reps that you put in, the better you get. And ultimately, it's those who are willing to do the most reps are going to be winners. So from that standpoint, it is a bit of a competition, because every time I, like, good or bad, if I'm on holiday, I'm thinking about what other people in our space, are they on holiday? Have they got their feet up? Are they relaxing? Like, that can be unhealthy, but it's just the way that I look at it, and it served me well. And it all boils back to that initial business experience, which is like, I am never going to go back to that again. Please.
Yeah.
Please.
Don't deliver me that again.
Seriously.
Yeah. Well, and that, so it is interesting then. So ego can be framed as negative, but I guess the way you're sort of describing your experience around ego and competitiveness or competition, it's more constructive sense, I guess. And it sounds like it's helped you stay in the game during these tougher periods.
Well, I think the thing is, like, I want to win, but I don't necessarily want to see other people lose. And I think that's the important defining factor. Like, I want to win, but not at the destruction of those around me or within our
the
community.
detriment.
Yeah. Like, I don't, like, it's not that. It's more of an internal thing. Just be like, like, do what needs to be done to win. And I know everyone knows what they need to do. doing it's another thing for sure.
Do you think there's a level of pride too? When you're proud of what you do, you want to share it and you want to win. Like it's
For sure, for sure. But like, I just think, yeah, like that pride is a driving factor, but the fear of losing or feeling that way again, like it was, yeah, even just talking about it with you now, I think back to that period, like that, it was such a hard thing to go through in that moment. Like in hindsight, it's like, I'm not saying $30,000 is nothing, but in the grand scheme of things of what we'd spent on the build, there's nothing. And really, it was such a cheap lesson. Like we've had a lot more expensive lessons than that, believe me. But it was just at that moment we'd built up that we were going to be this thing, and when we weren't able to achieve that, and everybody knew that we weren't able to achieve that, I just felt like we'd let everyone down. All the people who'd worked on the build, I felt like we'd let everyone down. And again, like if ever there's a time where I'm like, oh, I just can't be bothered getting out of bed, I think of that moment, I'm just like, let's go. It's just, yeah, it drives me for sure.
yeah, and because it sounds like it made such an impact on you that now when you remember it, it probably gives you more like a different perspective of where you're at now, right? Like because you've learnt from it and
For sure. Like the wins are great, and we've had like some amazing wins over the years, but certainly the losses is where the lessons lay. Those losses, and learning things the hard way, which has basically been everything we've done. Like we didn't start the business like most of the businesses that we deal with overseas, quarries and stuff, because it's so expensive. It's like second, third generation. They've got this wealth of knowledge or history behind getting to a place in the business. We had none of that. So it's, been proud of what we've achieved so far, for sure. Super proud of that, but also terrified that it could all be taken away and getting back to that place, which is like such a scary, scary thought.
So when I hear you say, just with regards to that experience, you mentioned, we told everybody.
Yeah.
We told everyone that we were doing this. So all of a sudden, logically, that makes you sort of seen as that you've got to prove that it's going to work, right? So you've told everyone, assuming it'll be a successful venture, and then it's not. Well, it doesn't sound unsuccessful, but it sounds like you didn't get what you wanted.
Yeah, by the measuring stick that we use, it was a failure.
A failure.
Yeah.
And so has that taught you anything about, I'm not going to say oversharing, but kind of, when sometimes you might build something up to be something, maybe it's not just yet, and then you look back and you're like, I probably shouldn't have.
I would be lying to you if I sat across this table and told you that one of my biggest fears about doing this was putting myself out there, knowing that if things failed, this would always be out there. And that's been an evolution again with us getting in front of the camera to promote our products. So when we first hired our marketing manager, from day one, he was in our ears about, hey, we need to do some founder-led content. All three of us were like, no, not doing that. Because of that trauma of the initial business broadcasting, hey, we're doing this thing, it's going to be awesome, and then it fails. Thinking back to that and being like, are we going to do the same thing here again? And it's terrifying. But on the other side of that, I'm just comfortable with the fact that that was the first thing that we ever did as business people. And I wouldn't even call ourselves business people back then. It was like a laugh. But now, understanding that, I feel like we've gotten to a stage where we've got the reps in. So I'm not going to be amazing at this, the first ever podcast I did. I haven't been amazing at anything I've done the first time. We as a collective haven't been amazing at anything. But if I'm willing to put the work in and do the reps, the fruit is going to be there. I've learned that lesson, and I'm just happy to commit to the process.
And you're showing up.
Showing
At the
up.
end of the day,
Yeah.
you've got to pat yourself on the back for
Oh my
showing up,
goodness,
you
yeah.
know?
I say that to anybody who is doing hard things. It's hard for a reason. But my experience of hard things is that's the way to get to the chocolates.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're growing. Each time you show up for these types of things that you're a little bit uncomfortable with, we're growing. So GatherCo originally positioned itself as more exterior materials, but as a business, you've more evolved now and expanded into interior applications as well. So it's a bit of both. How did that evolution come about, and what has that now meant for your long-term vision?
I think like over the last 10 years, one of the things that I've certainly noticed is that specifiers are a lot more willing to push the boundaries and blur the lines between internal, external. So things like cobblestones, we had only ever developed those collections with the intention of those being laid externally. Yet I was at a project in the Gold Coast hinterland a month ago where she had laid them all through the bathrooms, she had laid them through the laundry, and it looked amazing. So I think uh, by nature of our climate, sunny, internal, external living, often people want to see the continuation of internal services externally, vice versa, and have that transition relatively seamless. So by default, we've just naturally seen our collections being specified more internally. And then seeing that, we've taken that into the conversations that we're having with the suppliers that we're working with overseas so that we can develop collections that are versatile. Like,
Slip ratings
yeah,
and
exactly.
yeah.
Well, you know, once upon a time, we only ever did a bush hammered surface, for example, which is quite textured. You're not going to lay a bush hammered surface internally, but you might potentially lay a sandblasted and brush surface internally because it takes away a whole bunch of that coarseness, but still also ticks that slip rating box, meaning it can be laid externally. So for us, it's just about listening. Like the better we are at listening and observing what's happening out in the field, the more we're able to help to facilitate products that have got that versatility. And also, like, I'd like to be able to take full credit for all our collections, but ultimately it comes down to what we're asked to produce. Like, we see or get asked to produce things, and then those things come into projects. We're like, wow, that is really good. Should we introduce that as a line?
Yeah, so
Yes,
you're learning from how these
for
projects are
sure.
being developed.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, yeah, it's such an incredible thing. Like when you see good design happening, it's such a humbling thing to be a part of that because it's magic. Like when you see it unfolding, it's magic. And to play a small part in that is, something that's very special.
It's a testament to the designer supplier relationship as well, because I know that when I'm chatting with my suppliers like yourselves, I'm saying, hey, I just realized that I don't think that was an interior application, but could that be an interior? Oh, hang on a second, let's have a look. And then all of a sudden we're developing a new idea. And I think that's what the client won't do. They'll see it at face value and be like, cool, I'm going to buy that. This many square meters, very structured. Whereas we're the creatives unpacking, how can that application be
And
done?
like ultimately, those spec decisions, those finishing decisions, lay with you guys. So if it doesn't work out because it really shouldn't have been used in that application, like often it's you that's wearing that disgruntlement from the client. So from our perspective, we want to make sure it's right. Like we want to make
Educate.
exactly so that everyone is comfortable with the decision. And again, we just take very, very seriously that specifiers and anybody that uses our product is hedging their reputation against their ability to deliver. So
And so you're constantly in conversation with other business owners, probably both in the industry and outside the industry. What common pressures or realities do you see coming up again and again in the industry?
staff, for sure. Like I hear people dealing with huge challenges around staff. It is a really hard thing to manage, no doubt. There is a broad spectrum. So certainly there's businesses that we deal with who think their greatest asset is their staff. And I think the defining factor when I'm speaking to those business owners is being very, very conscious of training and onboarding and making sure that everybody is understanding what a good job is, but more specifically, what a bad job is, so that you can have those conversations on the spot and squash things when they arise. And I think that's something that we've learned as well in our business. Um, I think the economic climate is really tricky. It's Australia's a relatively difficult place to do business, especially on a small scale. The costs are significant. It's a really hard thing to get right. And we've just found, from our standpoint, there are a few things we've been super lucky around, and certainly that's been mentorship and our accountant, who is maybe too blunt at times, but it's so healthy because he comes to us at a different, he doesn't care how beautiful something is. Like the amount of times he's like, James, but I'm like, but it's beautiful. It's kind of, I don't care. The three of us have our defined roles, like Michael, Daniel, and like I just so happen to fall into the ideas category. Like I'm the one that comes to the table with ideas, and the reactions that I get from the boys at times, like Michael, who like manages all their accounts, I'll go to him, I'm like, man, I've got this. He'll go, how much? I'm like, you haven't even heard the, I goes, I don't want to hear the idea. Just tell me how much it is, and I'll tell you if I want to hear it. I'm like, well, I don't know. Something kind of costs like 20 grams. Like, no, we're not hearing this. We're not hearing this. I'm not listening.
But I've got a whole
Yeah,
presentation ready.
100%. Yeah, that's what Dan's like. Dan's like, should I sit down for this? Like, yeah, it's going to take a minute, but you're going to love it.
Please,
So,
everyone sit down.
Yeah,
Have I got a coffee?
100%.
Make them really comfortable.
100%. So, but it's good. We just, we bounce things around. And like I said, if it was up to me, some of the ridiculous things that we would have spent money on over the years would mean I would not be sitting here right now.
You need them to
Whereas,
balance you out.
just the boys at times would be like, nah, we're not buying a statue of a pink elephant to sit in the showroom because it just doesn't make any sense at all. We don't even have a showroom. Like, oh yeah, that's right. Okay. All right, sorry, that's a bad one. Scrap that one.
You're still presenting, everyone's left.
100%. 100%.
And so I guess, like you mentioned with Kristen and your two little ones, how do you balance home life, travel, personal? How do you balance it all with all of this?
Yeah, this is the moment where I like almost get a little bit emotional because I'm just so lucky to have a partner who has just without question believed in what we're doing, and she's never doubted me, and there's no way that all three of us could have achieved what we have without the support of like the women behind us. It's like we are so lucky. So it is a juggling act, and the only way that it works is because we have Kristen, my wife, we have Andy, who's Dan's partner, and we have Maya, who's Mike's wife, and what they do behind the scenes so that we can do what we do day to day is as impressive and as important as GatherCo itself. Yeah, it is GatherCo.
And so if we talk about GatherCo next steps, what's in store for you guys?
So we have been working on a series that we're super excited about. It's something that Adam, who runs our marketing, suggested basically the day that he started. He's just like, look, we need to be better at telling the stories behind how you guys bring products to the market and what goes in. So effectively, myself and Kristen and our two kids, we spent 3 months overseas in Africa, largely, working with some of the suppliers that we deal with over there, and we've documented that process, and we're super excited to launch that in the not too distant future and start to give people a bit of an idea of what goes into it. It's a pretty cool story and something obviously that's very close to my heart.
And that's, when you say documenting it, like even just I think for the specifier to have that beautiful visual of how it goes to go to the country, see the quarry, select the stone, like having that visual. We don't have a lot of that. We've got photos of quarries and people sort of go, okay, so it comes from there and then they move on. Yeah, so that sounds really exciting.
In my opinion, so much of the value of what we're bringing to the market is wrapped up in the story. The origin is like the things that these people do and those relationships and what goes into delivering a quality product is amazing. Like it's amazing. Like 10 years in, I am still on every single trip flabbergasted at some of the things that I say. I can't believe it. Like, and I just think, we kind of have a duty to honor those people by articulating those stories the best that we can. It's still something that we're learning to do, and certainly, being overseas with a cameraman next to you is like a very weird thing to do.
Yeah. Like what do I do here?
Yeah, what
Do you want me to walk?
Yeah, it's but it's funny how quickly Sean, our videographer, fades into the background when we're doing things, and you can just concentrate on, like, it's forgotten. Like, you have that initial shock, but yeah, so like that's something that I'm really excited about. I'm really excited about getting better at telling stories, and also back here in Australia, starting to articulate the great projects. Like, the projects that we're involved with are amazing. There's huge projects, but even the small ones, they're just the passion, the effort, and the results that the talented people that we deal with are able to achieve are like amazing and worth telling. Like,
Yeah.
stories worth telling, 100%.
Absolutely. And just
100%.
finding out, like we do here, like what goes on behind the design. That's it. That's a perfect example of
For
that.
sure.
I can't wait to see it. Exciting. So we always wrap up with 3 questions under 3 minutes. What's one business decision you almost didn't make that ended up changing everything?
Hiring our marketing manager.
Okay.
Yep. We played with that idea for so long, and we were just freaked out at that step because it was the first, like, this guy's got a degree, I don't have a degree. It's a big step. So that was something that we really would just struggle with for a long time. And when we did it, and it's turned out to be one of the best things we've ever done. And he can hear that. He's standing right over there.
Yay. He's in the room. He's in the room. Okay. Question 2. What's a small daily habit that helps you stay focused or grounded?
Training.
What type of training do you do?
Now CrossFit.
Cool.
Yeah, I just, like, I don't have to think. Like, the hardest thing for me is getting there. Once I just do what I'm told. It sucks. Like, every second of it sucks, but I feel so good afterwards. And I love the people that I train with, and it just,
Good environment.
Yeah, it's so healthy. And also, I just want my children to understand that if you can maintain healthy habits, life is so much better.
Yeah.
So much better.
Last question. If you could get away for the weekend right now, where would you go and why?
We got married in Tasmania, and I just love it down there. Like, Hobart is spectacular. If I could go somewhere for a weekend, like right now, absolutely Hobart. Yeah, love it.
Well, thank you for sharing your journey.
Thanks for having me.
GatherCo. Today's conversation is a reminder that building a business is rarely linear. It's shaped by boundaries, by perspective, by competition, and by learning when to keep pushing forward and when to step back. James's reflections highlight something many people in creative and construction industries will recognize, that resilience isn't about avoiding challenges, but about continuing to evolve through them. For those listening, you can explore GatherCo's work online and follow along as the business continues to grow. I'm Camilla Ingall, and this has been Behind the Design. Thank you for being here and for continuing to support these conversations.